Hi, I'm getting ready to leave the hospital. There's nothing like a doctor's appointment to remind you that you're getting old and death comes for us all, and our bodies are just these perishable things that wilt and fall apart and need constant maintenance. So yeah, picked up some medicine from the pharmacy here and I'm getting ready to drive back home. But first I have to find my motorbike in this sea of motorbikes. It's a lot of bikes. I remember parking on the end, so I think I can find it. And then I'm going to show you the trip back home and I will lay a voiceover over top. I'll talk about something, maybe talk about my work in progress or something else if I come up with an idea as I'm driving. But yeah, today's a writing day. And this is a prime example of why my mom can never know about this YouTube channel, because if she saw this kind of footage, she would be completely traumatized by what appears to be a state of perpetual mortal peril that we're all in as we're pinballing around the streets. But really, once you've been here for a while and you get used to driving, you develop an instinct for where you should be on the road and what other drivers are going to do. You learn to never trust anyone. And you just keep that space in front of your motorbike relatively clear of hazards and try not to hit anything. And you just go little by little. You don't look too far up the road and you just make it home. And it should come as no surprise that the upcoming footage is going to be pretty wobbly and pretty bouncy and just maybe a little bit difficult to watch, especially if you are prone to motion sickness. I would say just look away from the screen and listen to the voiceover only, or you could skip to the next chapter where I'm going to talk about my work in progress. But if you'd like to see what it's like to drive a motorbike in Saigon, keep your eyes on the screen and try not to lose your lunch, I guess. Okay, so let's get into the topic for today. I was leaving the hospital today just ruminating on my age and how I wish I had started writing fiction earlier in life and wondering where I would be today if I'd started writing 20 years ago. That's a pretty fruitless mental pursuit, but it got me thinking about what I might have wanted to write about back in my early 20s and how it might have been easier to pursue writing back then. Anyway, the whole drive home, I was thinking about this and I came up with the pros and cons of starting writing after 35. So here we are, the pros and cons of being an older writer. Cons. Number 1, the full weight of adult responsibilities usually hit by the early to mid 30s. At least it did for me. Some people have their kids young, but I was totally wild and child-free until my first daughter was born when I was 33. There were years when I was teaching and traveling and having fun, and I could have put some of that idle time into writing. I lovingly call my kids my barnacle babies because they cling to me, and they're always with me, even if they're just below the surface of my thoughts while I'm trying to focus on my work or some other task. And of course, I love them, and I don't really think of them as an obstacle in my life. Still, I would have gotten more writing done by now. They were older and more independent, or if I'd started writing before they were born. Number 2, a disconnect from the current moment and what is trending. Yes, some older people stay hip and have that riz. I can pretend to know what's going on, but once a word like riz reaches my vocabulary, then that probably means it's cringe already. Did you roll your eyes at me? Was that cringe? I hope so. Anyway, yes, good writing should be timeless, but it seems like timeliness and trends are important in publishing, and maybe younger writers have an edge when it comes to trends. Number 3, declining energy and stamina. I'm not saying that I'm entirely decrepit. Don't let the moo-moos fool you. But I definitely get tired during what used to be my prime creative hours between 9 p.m. and 2 a.m. I can write in the morning, but my best flows happen at night. Now my eyes start getting heavy before midnight and my mind fights to keep writing, so I wind up jerking awake right as I'm drifting off in bed and frantically add ideas that I wish I had the energy to type into my Notion app so that they don't get lost to the sands of dreams. This might go back to having too many responsibilities like work, kids, household management, and all the associated mental labor. Or it might be a simple product of circadian change and sleep apnea that I've apparently developed. Probably because I'm getting older. Number 4, pressure. It's the now or never feeling. When you're young, you're invincible and you have all your years ahead of you. Some younger people may feel peer pressure to publish at an early age, but the pressure from the Grim Reaper is slightly scarier. I don't usually think that way, but the idea that I wasted time when I was young and I could die tomorrow before making anything happen as a novelist pops out when I see a rejection on Query Tracker from an agent I had high hopes for. Number 5. This last one doesn't really pertain to me, but some writers who are boomers or older Gen X might have trouble connecting with the online writing communities and resources. Not all, but some with limited access or awareness, and that might be a barrier, especially when it comes to querying agents. But what can you do about all this? Tell your kids to get jobs and change the locks? No, but really. I think the answer is prioritizing and finding a way to body double with your kids if they're old enough. I set my girls up at the same table where I'm writing, and I give them crayons and paper. It's not the ideal writing environment for me, but I can at least reread what I've already written the night before, maybe add a few hundred words in between their chaotic demands. I also insist on dedicated writing time after 9 p.m. Bedtime's firm. Just because I'm up doesn't mean the kids are allowed to bother me at that time. I take care of their needs when it's their time. The other things can't really be helped, like staying up with trends. Unless you go back to high school undercover, a la Never Been Kissed. I'm really showing my age here. But anyway, I want to focus on the pros now. Pros number 1, life experience. This is a generalization that doesn't apply to everyone, of course. There are younger people who have traveled widely and have had tons of experiences, and some older people who've spent their whole lives in their hometown and have never even been on an airplane. But just mathematically, older people have been on Earth longer and have at least had more opportunity for diverse and rich life experiences. Meeting more people, going out and seeing more things firsthand, more life milestones, both good and bad, more successes and more failures. And of course, we've just had more conscious hours to devote to reading. Not only that, but in my particular case, I sometimes feel like I've already lived a few distinct lives. I grew up on a farm and I had a quaint small town life, slinging ice cream cones at an old-fashioned walk-up Dairy Queen, before working on the grunt end of academia. My late 20s and early 30s were spread across continents, teaching English and hitchhiking and taking every risk that popped up. And now my mid-30s have been my mom years and working in upscale property management. Through many different careers and locations and languages learned, I've connected with a range of people I wouldn't have met if I'd stayed in one place. Older writers like me can capitalize on those experiences to write layered characters, rich settings, and realistic conflict. Number 2, disposable income. This may not be true of millennials, but older writers might have already paid off their houses, graduated without crippling student loan debt, and their kids may already be earning their own livings. So older writers might have money for things like paid beta readers, editor critiques, and writing retreats. Some young writers might be flush with cash, but it's less likely. Number 3, the now or never pressure. I said this was a con, but it might also be a pro. The ticking clock might make older writers just put the pen to paper already, or query the book that might not be 100% perfect, because the time to do things is now. There might also be a certain confidence that comes with age that makes it easier for us to do things without concern for being judged. We've already lived through plenty of embarrassment and failure, so what's a little more? That's the takeaway from this video. If you're my age or older and you haven't started writing or querying yet, just go for it. You have nothing to lose and there's no shame in rejection, and it stings less on our leathery old hides. And if you're young, seize the day, because time will pass faster than you think. And on that note, it's my carpe diem moment. I'm going to go have lunch and get into an afternoon writing session. And I'll make sure to check in with you guys and let you know exactly what's going on with my manuscript and where I'm headed in my writing today. I'm looking a little tired, but that can't be helped. So, okay. I've had lunch and I'm sitting down. I'm going to have a writing session here in the kitchen. I don't really have the energy to pack up and go anywhere right now. So yeah, I'm going to write here. But before I get started writing, I want to say a little bit more about my work in progress and what I'm actually writing. So the story is centered on a woman named Lena. She's 28 years old, and she lives in a society that's kind of inspired by what would happen if Project 2025 came to fruition. It's not a theocracy, though. It's very much based on a flawed logic and a flawed rationality. It's a state that's very anti-immigration to the point that the birth rate can't replace the population anymore. And there's been a decline in general population, which affects productivity and the economy and everything else. People who have viable ovaries have been subjugated and are heavily monitored in this society, but they're still allowed to go out and live their lives and have jobs and travel and do all these things, but they're being subjected to biomonitoring. I don't want to go too much into the world building. The story starts out on a cruise ship. This woman, Lena, has decided to go on this cruise because she's had a bad breakup in a bad relationship. And she's gone on this cruise by herself to kind of reset and restart. And she meets an older woman on the cruise who seems very lonely and who kind of gloms onto her and wants to spend a lot of time with her. Which at first she's kind of suspicious, but then she feels kind of like a harmless old lady and, she should be friends with her. She lost her mother years earlier, so she's looking for that kinship with someone. So she goes on a lot of excursions with this older woman. They talk a lot. They get to know each other. She comes home from the cruise and finds out that she's in big trouble with the government. She's hauled in to a government facility for some special monitoring, and I guess you could sort of say like re-education. So we're past that point already. When she comes out of this government facility, she is just really on edge and she really just needs some comfort. And she's been invited by this older woman to come and visit her down at her home on River Road in Louisiana. So Lena doesn't really want to go at first, and she kind of goes back and forth, and there's a debate. That's where the debate comes in the Save the Cat beats. This is the debate where she's not sure if she should really go there. It's a show of vulnerability. She doesn't really want to give up some agency, and she's an adult. She wants to handle it herself, but she winds up deciding like, hey, I need some comfort, some camaraderie. I'm going to go. So she packs up and she goes down there, only to find that this older woman doesn't just live in a house down there. She lives in a full-on plantation manor, and it's quite empty, but very well maintained and beautiful, but just kind of void. It's just deserted. It's this older woman and a couple of staff members, but really it's a shadow of a vibrant place that used to be. Where I left off writing last time, Lena has been trying to figure out how this family got their money and held on to it through these economic struggles that have come as a result of the governmental change and the end of slavery, Reconstruction, all of the ups and downs of the 20th century. How did they hold on to all this money and not go broke? And then the older woman needs to leave for a day to go on a business lunch to Baton Rouge and leaves her there in the house alone. So Lena spends the morning trying to kind of lurk around and snoop and try to find some kind of document or a computer that she can check into to figure out, is this family safe for her? Can she count on this woman to maybe help her get back at the powers that be? She's starting to question whether she should really just go along with what the government is trying to put her through, whether she shouldn't try to fight back in some way. And she thinks maybe this older woman could have some connections to people who are sort of in the underground, people who are called matriarchists, who are opposed to this fascist government. So she wants to find out who this woman really is and who she's connected with. So the place where I left off is that Lena has been going room by room in this old house, kind of exploring like the ballroom, the library, the conservatory, a study that is suspiciously empty, all of these empty bedrooms that are kind of very clean, very well maintained, but also somewhat menacingly empty. The setting is really important here. And just as she's getting to kind of the last part of the house that she hasn't checked yet, she's confronted by a member of the staff calling her down for lunch. So that's where we left off. She's having lunch with like this suspicious housekeeper woman who we've just met and we don't really know anything about. So she's trying to get like her bearings of who is this person and can I trust her and has she been watching me while I've been snooping through this old woman's house. The next part of the story, Lena is going to maybe sneak out and do a little bit more snooping at night and see if she can't turn up some information. So I'm going to write that part, and yeah, that's kind of the vibes for this story. This story is really about like, who am I? Who is the government? Who is this older woman? Who is this housekeeper? A lot of the story is basically about trust and mistrust and secret identities and hidden motives. And these kinds of things make it somewhat a mystery, somewhat a thriller. It's very dystopian, but it's also with the setting and this sense of social corruption and just social destruction. And yeah, it's Southern Gothic. It really fits into the Southern Gothic thing, but it has so many dystopian, futuristic elements because it's set in 2061. So yeah, it's on the boundary lines of these different genres, and I'm trying to work out what exactly am I writing here. But I'm really into it. I'm really excited. I know where the story's going. I don't have a set outline chapter by chapter, but I do know what the main beats are. So I guess I'm planting. I don't know. I don't like to really put a label on how I'm writing it. Just the fact that I am writing it is enough for me. But yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and write as much as I can. I'll put my word count up on the screen at some point. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.